Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 64th episode of Friday at 5, the most popular, engaging, and empowering e-convo on school education that has been attended by over 65,000 educators from all over India and 33 other countries. Friday at 5 is organized by ICSL, India's most trusted knowledge not-for-profit, with the mission to inspire, empower, and enable educators. Today, during a conversation on cultivating a growth mindset, we'll discuss how a growth mindset can be intentionally taught to students and to grown-ups too. So now over to Dr. Atul to initiate the conversation.
Thank you very much for this wonderful setting up. That I want to start with, and I'm going to start it with James. I'll straight away bring him into the conversation. We all understand the importance of having a growth mindset. What are the real obstacles, that we can't cultivate it in ourselves? So knowing it philosophically is good. But then why is it that people with fixed mindset cannot develop a growth mindset? What are the major obstacles that they have?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the invitation, and it's lovely to join you all. And I'm going to say good morning from the England-Scotland border, and good evening to you all listening today. I am privileged enough to work very closely with Carol Dweck. We go on tour together many, many times. I think the last time we did it just before the pandemic, that was the 30th tour that we had done together. And in the conversations we have whilst traveling from one conference to another, it's interesting when we focus in on the nuance and the subtleties. I think one thing to bear in mind is that it's probably better to talk about being in a fixed mindset, in a growth mindset, rather than having one. Because that then gives us the sense that we can change. And in fact, Carol Dweck herself says, if anybody tells me that I'm always in a growth mindset, I think that's one of the most fixed mindset things to say. Because, I'm looking at this panel that I'm joined, you are weird people. We are all weird people. We are all big screw-ups. We've made huge mistakes in our lives, and we are such wonderful weirdos that there isn't one solution that will solve everything for all of us. We are all at different starting points, and I think it's important to remember that genetics do play a big, big difference. You and I are genetically different. When I compare myself to others, we are genetically different. Some of us were born with a better capacity for memorization than others. Some of us were born with more muscle than others. Some of us were born taller than others. So we have a genetic advantage or disadvantage. So mindset is not about ignoring nature. Mindset is saying, so what next? And if you are in a fixed mindset, you think what I've been given is what I've got, full stop. Whereas if you're in a growth mindset, you think what I have been given is my starting point. So why is it, for example, that India does extremely well in cricket, but really very badly in rugby? Why? Well, there's some genetic aspects to that. You don't tend to be a very muscly, broad group of people, but and you don't play rugby very much, and yet you play cricket. You obsess with cricket. You talk about it. I bet you, Atul, you were thinking of cricket in the shower. Maybe you weren't thinking of your problem, but you were thinking of cricket. You obsess with it, and guess what? You become better and better and better with the things that you obsess with, the things that you love, the things that you focus on, and so on. But if you were to obsess the same with rugby, I'm very sorry, and I can only see from your neck up, but I'm going to suggest you wouldn't be as successful with rugby as you would with cricket, because there are some genetic things that rugby players have that you and I both don't have. So let's not pretend that we're all starting on the same place, because we're not. We all start in different places. The importance of mindset is, do you accept your place, or do you think that's my starting point? And that's when it comes into the importance in education. And that is why I think, to answer your question more directly, that is why a lot of people will be in a fixed mindset, because they are told that's what you can do. That's all you are capable of. In the school education system, we often will group kids according to the intelligent ones and the least intelligent ones. I mean, what's that all about? We will choose kids who show very early promise and give them extra support. This child seems to be very good at reading very early. Let's give them more support because they're obviously clever, because they can obviously read very well. They're obviously a read. This child's showing great sporting prowess. This child's showing very musical prowess. And we give them extra support. But imagine if you took that exact same support and gave it to the children who had shown no signs of progress yet. Imagine how they would grow. So mindset is a really interesting thing. And to summarize, I would say mindset is how, and I'm going to talk the school context here, how children and adults make sense of success and failure.
That's a very, very good point. How do we really look at our success and our failure is a very important element. And James, just tell us, how do people who are in fixed mindset look at failure, and how do people who are in growth mindset look at failure? Very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly then. So, and I'm glad you picked on the word failure, because actually that is one of the most significant places to start if you want to change people's mindset. Those in a fixed mindset see failure as the end of the road. They tell themselves, I should never have done that. That was a stupid thing to do. Why did I ever think I could do it? Those people in a growth mindset look at the exact same failure and say, well, that didn't work. Why did it not work? What can I learn from it? And what can I do next to avoid the same mistake again?
What can I do in my school tomorrow, okay, to switch from? But because I don't think it's a very big idea. I mean, all I have to do is, maybe even I am in a fixed mindset today. And thank you, James, for correcting. We don't have a fixed mindset. I am in a fixed mindset today. And I want to be in a growth mindset as a teacher. Okay. How do I start treating or looking or at students who may be failing to achieve the learning outcomes or learning standards yet, right? How do I start looking at them differently from tomorrow? There are some weak kids. What do I do now? And what do I go and tell them tomorrow morning or Monday morning?
Twofold. My answer would be, we need to make systemic changes and we need to make changes in the individual. For any change to sustain, just a policy top down is not going to help. We have to make twofold. So as an organization, we have to have systems in place that say, if the certain percentage is not being met, here is how you have to address those kids. You have to look at their strengths. And I'm saying this because we have a school for dyslexics. The way we address the dyslexic children is that they are geniuses. The reason that they're dyslexics is because their IQ is above 120. So they're geniuses. Let's focus on the genius. Let's focus on the strengths. Now, as a systemic approach, you will say every child is unique. Every child has a strength. Can you focus on that? On a sustainable approach, one has to have training, constantly hammering, constantly hand-holding, constantly capacity building to the teachers. And one of the things we did during this COVID break is our leadership team actually read John Cotter's book, Leading Change. Every Saturday between 2 and 4 o'clock, we would read chapter by chapter, because change in an individual is a process. So to me, I do two things. I would do a systemic approach, which is policy top down, and I do a training approach for sustainability.
Okay, good. So let me bring in Ramji. Ramji, one of the big reasons why we have this mindset, and you can comment on other issues also that have been discussed so far, but parents seem to be one of the builders of this mindset. They are the creators. We are not alone. Parents actually start blaming their kids very soon, and they don't really, feel that with a little bit more effort, their child can master whatever they want. So they say, he can't do more than that. I know he's my child. He can't do more than that. So these parents who are in a fixed mindset, how can we help them think beyond what their kids were born with and look at what they can really achieve and work towards that?
So, first of all, I just want to sort of agree with James about the inner fixed mindset and inner growth mindset. I actually discovered growth mindset about 4 years back after having delivered about 50, 60 motivational talks. A company invited me to talk about growth mindset. And I had never read or come across growth mindset at that point in time. And I managed to read Carol Dweck's book, and I said, wow, this is me. Because every single instance in my life where I have achieved under potential, I could connect it to when I was in a fixed mindset. And every single time I have hugely overcome difficulties and challenges, which is plenty in my case, I've realized that it was the time when I was manifesting a growth mindset. Now, for me, actually, I'm very lucky that my parents did something fundamentally right in bringing me up. One of the things that my dad used to do when I was a kid and consistently used to tell us stories of people who have overcome great difficulties and who had very little support from their surroundings or their circumstances, but managed to overcome great difficulties and achieve great things. And these stories had a deep impact on me. And that's why, I studied in a Malayalam medium government school with a pass percentage of about 20% in a small village in Kerala. And I managed to get into IIT with a rank very close to 100 out of 300,000 people who wrote the exam. And this is in spite of not having any external tuition or anything. But the fact is, my parents used to never, ever label me when I did badly as a failure or as an idiot or a Dumbo or anything like that, right? They would always say, it's about working hard to make it happen. And that's actually propelled me to phenomenally work hard during those 2 years in the run up to IIT and did well. Right. And again, in my corporate career, there are multiple times when I became a very, very young CEO of a telecom operation at 34. And as a circle head, we used to have these annual meets when all the circles heads would come together. Since I was so young, the actual success of my career made me go back into a shell, thinking, what if I open my mouth in these meetings and I'm found wanting? So sometimes it's your success itself which makes you go into a fixed mindset. And so there are so many factors which play to that. But parenting correctly in early childhood, and this is what I have also explained in my book, growth mindset is a very critical thing that parents need to cultivate early in childhood. And one of the ways is by storytelling. The other one is by not being judgmental, removing labels. And this also applies in schools. I know that around 50% of our teachers are very comfortable in labeling a child as, the idiot of the class or somebody else as the brilliant one of the class. Yeah. And it it just doesn't work. Even you're actually doing an injustice to the brilliant one also, because
Okay.
they think they're cat's whiskers, and then they are scared of exposing themselves by taking on difficult challenges. And in case they fail, they will look like they don't have enough ability. So it is both the parents as well as the teachers who need to come together in cultivating a growth mindset, and from very early childhood onwards.
Right. So that's a great point. Let me move to one other aspect. One of the big aspects of growth mindset is that we take criticism positively. Now, that's an important aspect, that if I am in a growth mindset, I'm not being defensive if somebody criticizes me. But sometimes in education environment in India, school leaders are not open to criticism. They feel they are the final word. They know it all. They have been there, done that. The teacher is not open to criticism, forget by students, even by colleagues or by parents. Um, and then we want to tell our students that they should look at criticism positively. Now, how is it that an individual in a growth mindset handles criticism different from an individual in a fixed mindset? James, that question is to you. And
Thank
then
you.
I'm going to take your response to Manjula to see why is it that we can't have a culture of welcoming criticism in every school in India. Why can't we do that? So I'm going to already put that question to her, but let me first bring you into the discussion. What do we do, James?
So it depends. It's two people involved. Let's keep it simple. Let's say, Atul, you are giving me criticism. So there's two people involved here. And on the one hand, I'm thinking, why are you telling me this? And on the other hand, I'm thinking, what can I do? And so there's two parts. If I absolutely believe you've got my best interests at heart, and that criticism is actually advice, albeit it's telling me things that I need to change, and I perceive it as criticism. But if I believe that you have my best interests at heart and you are offering me advice at the right time, and that's really important, then that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is, do I believe I can improve? Do I believe I can change? And if the answer to those two are yes, I believe you've got my best interests at heart and you're giving me advice that's useful, and I believe I can do something with it and learn from it, then I, generally speaking, will receive it much, much, much better than if it's in the opposite circumstances. Now, the question you asked before about what can we do in school, I wrote down a few things, and one would be about praise and criticism. So these are, and I absolutely agree with you, Manjula, that we have to get the systemic approach right. This is about a culture. But as a teacher or a parent, what can I do tomorrow? Here are a few things. One, don't praise the child, praise the actions. And the flip is also true. Don't criticize the child, criticize the actions. So that's really important. So I'm not saying that you're a clever boy at all. I'm saying that was a clever thing to do. I'm not saying good girl, Harinder. I'm saying that was a really good thing to say. So I'm praising their actions, not the child. I'm also, hand in hand, I'm focusing on advice. Atul, I think you could focus on this a bit more, and I think you should add that rather than, Atul, you're not very good at this. So praise and criticism has to be focused on the actions rather than the child. Second thing, feedback. If you give feedback, if you give marks or grades to a piece of work that is finished, then that is utterly, utterly insane, crazy. And I do not know why 90-something% of teachers around the world do it. It would be like we do this webinar, and at the very, very end of it, Atul, you say, James, I wish you had done this, 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 and this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why did you wait till we finished? If you had said, Atul, you send me a little private message, could you make sure you focus on this a little bit more? And can you stop talking so much? And could you add that? And you sent me that during this webinar, that's going to be taken as advice, and it's going to be really useful. So in the classroom, do not mark finished work. You say to your students, do the best that you can, then show me it. I will give you advice about how to improve it. You go and improve it, and then I'll grade it afterwards. Now, some people will actually say, but isn't that cheating? And I say, well, what do you mean cheating? Yeah. Well, won't the children do better because of your feedback? And I'm thinking, I certainly hope so, because that's the point of feedback, is to help them do better. So never, ever, ever grade work until the students prove to you that they've used the feedback that you've given. And number 3, and I could have a list of 20 here, but I'm just going to give you one more, and that is, please do what you can to recognize and draw attention to and celebrate progress. So if, for example, you put artwork on the walls in your classrooms, in your schools, tomorrow go and take it down. Take it down. And instead, what you do is you put the child's first version next to the child's improved version, next to their final version, and you draw attention to the progress. My eldest daughter came out of school outraged that she'd been given a maths test without any warning. I mean, this was against her human rights. And she came out of school the following day very happy. And we said, oh, how are you doing? She said, oh, we got our maths test back. And I said, okay, and how did you do? She said, I got 40%. And her mother and I are looking at each other as if to think, well, why are you smiling then? But what she said then was the brilliant bit. And she said, the teacher has said that was just the practice. Now we know where we're starting from, and we'll get the actual test next week. Can you imagine how much more she focused, how much more she looked at the things that she got wrong, how much more revision, and the following week she got 82%. And here was the brilliant thing. She compared moving from 40 to 82, rather than comparing, I got 60% and she got 70%, so I'm stupid.
Right.
Do those things. Those 3 will make a big difference.
Manjula, why are we not, as a school body, open to criticism all the time? Do you not feel we need to be more open to criticism at every stage?
100%.
Okay.
I am part of the school fraternity, and I talk from there. This is a place, because possibly the Guru Siksha Parampara, but teachers are on a slightly higher pedestal. So it appears that we have to talk down to students. I hope not. I think that things are really changing. Since you said that as a culture, how can we change? I want to talk to you that culture is a top-down thing. Culture is, I am a leader. Am I open to feedback? Am I open to what I'd like to call not criticism, but critical feedback? The minute you change the word criticism to critical feedback, it assumes a positive connotation.
Yes.
Critical feedback is for growth. It is for the next level. And like I said, everything is about, everybody has to do it. That's when the culture hits the organization. It's not like a stray incident where I'm doing it and nobody else. So I'm this great believer of reading books together, because books take you where you can't take people sometimes. And with the leadership team, we read a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, where he talks about brutal facts. And he says, just lay the facts on the table. Don't make any excuses for that. And once you look at the facts, and that's pretty much what James said, that, focus on the problem, not on the people. We have a saying in our organization in Calorex that you have to focus on the problem, never shoot the messenger. All of these are phrases that you would have heard. We have, when you deal with people, whether it's a student or faculty, this is something that I always say, and I'd love to say it one more time here. If you have to praise people, let's do it in public, where at least 4 other people are present. And if you have to give critical feedback, / criticism, do it in 4 walls. That's when we get the best results, because we are able to explain to people that it's well meant. But if you do it in public, it's a sense of showdown. It's a sense of, making one feel small. However, the intention, it just gets lost. Having said that, critical feedback has to be given. We have a job at hand as leaders. We need to build capability in people. And unless we show them critical feedback, a lot of things will not move in the right direction. So I think one has to create a safe environment where people know that the critical feedback is not only for their good, it's for the team's good, and finally the organization good. When I say that, I'm including parents, I'm including students. And as a systemic level, because we like to see change throughout, demographies and different cities, etc., we always do parents surveys, and we always do student surveys and staff surveys, actually, all the 3, and take all the, top 3, 1, 2, 3, and act as an organization. If there are 3 things that popularly being, not appreciated by our customers or students, which are parents loosely said, or even the staff, we have to address them. So that's how we try to build a culture of receiving feedback, critical feedback, and responding. In a school system, parents are always very concerned. If you give a critical feedback to the teacher, how will it be received? Will my child be at the receiving end of some negativity? To kind of avoid that situation, whether it's a student, parent, or a staff survey, we believe in anonymity. We just want the facts on the table. It's not about who said it. So even an anonymous survey will actually help us see the right winner.
Absolutely. We just have to be seen as a culture of welcoming feedback, welcoming criticism. Now, let's assume that we are able to cultivate growth mindsets in students. How does that contribute to their learning achievement?
Professor Dweck's work is based entirely on research, and she's drawn conclusions from that. At the moment, there are 2 meta-analyses that exist. Now, those 2 meta-analyses bring together, I think at the last count, something like 90 different studies on the impact of growth mindset. And there's some mixed results, unfortunately. A big part of the problem is that growth mindset, generally speaking, is applied in a very superficial way. People, for example, they take away that you should praise kids' efforts and just put more effort in. Well, there's absolutely no point at all putting more effort into the wrong thing. So it's not just effort, and a lot of misunderstanding. And growth mindset is not an easy thing to put into place unless you're in the right culture. And if I might give you 2 strong distinctions, there are the performance-based environments, and let's say schools for now. Performance-based is all about looking at the end result. In our case in education, it's about grades. So what matters most are the grades. So what we do is we make things as efficient as we can to get students through the curriculum to get the grades. We rate the quality of the teachers. We rate the quality of the learners. We rate the quality of performance. That's a performance-based environment. An alternative, and it's not a direct opposite, and of course there are many versions, but if I can paint sort of either end of the spectrum, there's the performance, there's the learning environment. Learning environment is It's about what can we learn along the way? What can we learn about ourselves? What can we learn about each other? What can we learn in the curriculum? If somebody asks a very interesting question, then we will spend time on that question, even if it's not on the curriculum. We will teach students how to problem solve, how to collaborate, how to be good citizens. And by doing so, we're going to grow these learners such that one of the byproducts will be very good grades. So you notice those two differences, and I'm sure we can all think of schools that are very performance focused and schools who are very learning focused. If you try to put growth mindset into a performance focused environment, it will not work. You are going to confuse people. I was working with an international school in Bahrain, right in between. It was the British School of Bahrain, and it was caught right bang in the middle between the International School of India and the International School of Pakistan, which was an interesting place for the British school to be. And as I was walking around the school, this kid said, "Ugh, growth mindset." And I said, "Oh, that doesn't sound very positive." "No, we hate it." "Why do you hate it?" "Because every time we get something wrong, the teachers blame our mindset and say that the reason we failed was because we're in a fixed mindset. They never blame their teaching. They always blame our mindset." And so in that very performance-focused environment, mindset was just another stick to beat children with. Whereas in a learning focus, imagine, it will just fit hand in glove. It'll work perfectly. But one thing that we can think of is school leaders listening today. If you want your school to be more learning focused and you recognize that you're too performance focused, then you could use the growth mindset theories, research, attitudes, approaches to move from performance to learning. But know this, it won't be very easy at all. So the research is there. It shows it's very clear. It shows massive impact in learning focus environments, but very little in performance focus because it tends to be very superficial, but you can use it to move from one to another, and then it becomes oxygen for learners.
Dr. Shroff, my next question to you after this wonderful explanation. What percentage of schools in India do you feel are learning focused? When I enter a school's lobby in Delhi, when I enter the reception area and the lobby, all I see is really big placards showing the performance of the students in CBSE exam, that we got so many toppers. We are a culture obsessed with marks, with performance, and and that's how the private school system really works. They need to, if you look at the advertisement in the newspaper, they're advertising how many toppers they create, how many 90 percenters they create. So are we really a culture of school education which is focused on learning, or are we focused on performance?
Let me try to say that differently. So whether it's a CBSE or a ICSE or state, which is the Indian curriculums, or it is a Cambridge or an international baccalaureate, unfortunately, in the 10th and the 12th grade, it is about grades, marks, and points. Even in IB, we'll talk about a 43 or a total 43 and a 47. Why? Because ultimately, we are feeding into the college. But if you were to leave out the board years, then I think that number is strong and growing.
Okay.
Because everybody knows that it cannot be mark-based. And that's where we have learning by doing methods. We have building-based learning, we have activity-based learning, we have, there are a lot of theories out there. We have constructivism, connectivism, all these inquiry-based learning, all of this helps the learning mechanism. But I have to say that more and more, maybe international baccalaureate schools, by the very design of the curriculum, the PYP, the primary years, is very strong in inquiry-based learning. And
let me put the same question to James. How many schools in England are learning-based? What percentage?
Well, yeah.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, you would find quite a lot of primary schools in lots of countries that are more learning based. In secondary or high schools, they very, very rarely are learning based because they are funded according to their grades. But it's really important to know it's not either we have good grades or we have a growth mindset. One can lead to the other, but we have to believe it. We have to have the evidence. We have to be very strong, and you can't change it overnight. So it has to be a cultural shift, a cultural journey. One of the schools that we work with, and it's a high school and it is very learning focused. It was interesting that they asked a teacher of French to be the head of department for the science department.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, the authority, the county council, did not like this at all. They said, well, what does she know about science? And the principal said, well, I didn't put her there to be the most knowledgeable about science. I put her there because she's a brilliant leader who will do a fabulous job of leading these people and causing them to look at progress. And you know what? I can ask questions that science teachers wouldn't ask because I can say, sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? How's that for a learning focus? And that's one of the many, 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 many things that they are doing. But it's also about, we can't just say, this is what's wrong. Right. We also have to say, and these are the things we can do about it. That's really, really important.
So my first question is for James. What are the key ingredients for a growth mindset? Can growth mindset be measured?
Yes, it can be measured. It's there's a lot of aspects to growth mindset that can be measured. One would be you ask students what they do when they don't know what to do. Okay. You give them, you could give them problems to solve that can't be solved, like impossible problems, and see what happens, see what they do. And get them to talk about it. As Manjula was saying, it's all about this student voice, and let's listen to them. Let's listen to the parents. Let's listen to the staff as well. So that would be one thing. Another thing would be, what does failure mean? Another thing would be, what's your strategy here? And we have to teach them, and I'm going to go back to my previous point, we have to teach them problem solving. So we can't just give them the information and the knowledge. We then have to teach them how to problem solve. Don't do it for them, but we have to, a really, really nice strategy, put mistakes at the heart of your learning process. So take your introduction to a lesson, cut it into the smallest introduction you can, and say to the students, right, I've given you just enough to make a start. See how you get on. If you're not sure what to do it anyway and see what happens. And then what you do is you observe the students, you find the mistakes that they are making, you pause the lesson partway through and you say, right then, here are, and you put on the board, here are 2 or 3 of the mistakes that I've seen people making. And you don't name who's making them, but you say, here's some of the mistakes. What are we doing wrong here? How can we solve it? How can we make sure we don't make the same mistake again? And guess what? The kids are all looking at their own books thinking, oh, I made that same mistake as well. But they are learning from that. And what we are teaching them there is not just memorization, although that's important. It's what to do with that memory and how to solve those problems. That's really, really, really important. Key part of growth mindset.
Brilliant.
Thank you, James. And Ramji, this question is for you. How can a mentor cultivate a growth mindset in a senior mentee who thinks that he or she already knows everything and there is no room for growth? What are the strategies used in such a situation whereby one can effectively bring about a growth mindset?
I think one of the key aspects of growth mindset is role modeling by actually demonstrating growth mindset. So the ability to say you don't know something and ability to constantly push the boundaries of what you don't know and step out of the boundary of comfort If you continuously role model that in an organization, over a period of time, the culture will seep into everybody. And it's actually the same at home. By the way, the parents can do the same for children.
Right. My last question is for Manjula. What are the doable ways to build a growth mindset and not get affected by negative thoughts?
Let me tell you this, what's inside is outside. If we are focused on growth internally, we may be momentarily affected by the environment, but we won't let the environment, hijack our mood or situation. Remember in Calorics, because you're a Calorics teacher yourself, remember we have a statement called, we'll hold an umbrella over your head when it rains. It only means that we are going to support each other for the momentary rains, but we carry our weather with us. Our weather is inside us. The happiness quotient is inside us. Our positivity is inside us. And it has to be continuous and sustainable, so much that we can help another person through the negativity, not get impacted by theirs.
Harinder, can I add one thing
Sure,
very
please go
quickly?
ahead.
Because
Yes.
that question is asked at every conference that Professor Dweck and I do. And Professor Dweck always answers it by saying, you should imagine that you have got a fixed mindset personality in your head. And when those fixed mindset ideas pop up, talk to that character that's in your head. It's almost like you've got this now, and name the character. Think of somebody negative in your life. My character is called Violet because that is my mother-in-law.
My character is called Billy Bob.
There you go, Billy Bob. Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton, maybe. But and there's Violet, you're in my head again. You're giving me these negative thoughts. You're saying I can't do it. You're saying we're never going to achieve this. Well, you know what, Violet, I'm not listening to you today. So you go and have yourself a nice little walk on the beach, and I'll see you later. And she said, and she gets the whole conference talking to each other about their fixed mindset personalities, and you can see the steam that's coming off people's faces and just this sense of yes, because you know what, we all have negative thoughts.
Does that really work, James?
Oh,
It
God,
really
it
does
does.
work.
Atul,
It does.
it does. Atul, I also asked Billy Bob, so what's the next negative thing you're going to throw at me?
That's right.
Wow.
So these are strategies. These are strategies to control negativity. Just give it a name and a face.
Yeah. Carol
I'm gonna
Dweck
do
uses
that.
it, and her fixed mindset.
Implement that
It's
into my
a
life.
great strategy. It's a great
Absolutely.
strategy.
Can I just add to that? One of the things that I do is I think of all the times when I've gone out of my comfort zone and done something great. And I keep reinforcing that in my mind when I get a fixed mindset, a fixed mindset,
Great.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So thanks to all the panelists for an insightful conversations and answers to some excellent questions from our audience.